Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am DRay, the producer, and this is the Liftoff Indie Music Podcast here on blastmusic247.com. Welcome, 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 welcome. And for another exciting podcast where we get to talk to emerging artists and independent artists and talk about their music and talk about their craft. I'm flying solo today. So it's a little weird, but we'll get through it. We do send a shout out to Miss Banks. This is one of those episodes that I'm glad she's not here because the 49ers are in the Super Bowl and she just would have been unbearable to deal with. So shout out to you, co-host. I hope you see this. Anyway, I'm excited to bring on an artist that I met recently, and she has a very eclectic sound, something a little bit of Diane Krall, a little bit of Annie DeFranco. And for those of you who don't know who Annie DeFranco is, maybe we'll go into that a little bit later. But my new friend, Linda Marks, she came out with a project earlier this year, beginning of January. So we're going to bring her on to talk about that and to talk about her pursuits into the music business. So without further ado, I introduce to you all Linda Marks on the Liftoff. Hi, Linda. How are you?
Hi there. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. That is great. I'm so happy that you're here on the Liftoff Indie Music Podcast. So let's get started. Miss Marks, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Brookline, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston. Actually, my house was literally on the borderline between Brighton and Brookline. There was one house that was cut in half and I was next to it. So one could say I'm from Brookline, Brighton, literally. I live in Waltham, Massachusetts now, which is a little northwest of Boston.
All right. And so what got you started in music? What was the beginning of the Linda Marks music career?
Well, the very beginning was being a little girl who didn't talk until I was 3, but would toddle as a toddler to any piano I could find and just starting to play and write music. What I say is music is my first language and my native language, and it's been in my heart and my soul since I was born. So the story of what I did with it is a much longer story, but where everything began was a little girl, and actually I could say a little girl with a love affair for the piano.
That's something I think we can relate to because not a lot of people know because, I don't tell people my business. But when I was younger, I didn't talk up until like maybe, 1, 2-ish, somewhere around in there. And and as my family would say, once I started, I didn't shut up. But yeah, I had a love affair with music as well. I was naturally drawn to instruments and things that made noise, and especially the record player and things like that. And so yeah, that's something we can definitely relate on. So you briefly mentioned the piano. Was that the first instrument that you really played seriously, or were you in band, or what was that?
I didn't have a piano when I was a little girl. My first word was piano, and I kept begging my parents for piano. And my father, unfortunately, whose mom had been a musician, he would always say, music is a waste of a good mind. He'd always try to get it out of me, but it doesn't work. Like if that's who you are, it's there. And
absolutely.
I actually have my 15th studio album, which will come out January 1st, 2025. The title song for that album is called The Silence of the Stars, which is a story of the little girl's love affair with the piano and how I finally got my piano and finally countered my father's voice railing on about how music is a waste of a good mind because his daughter was a musician, whether he liked it or not. So my first instrument when I was like 2 or 3 was the recorder, because there was a free program at the Laundry School of Music in Cambridge. And my mom couldn't help but notice that all her daughter kept saying was piano, piano, piano. And anytime there was music would be moving and dancing. So my mom found this free recorder program that I was in. And the people there told my parents that I was gifted and talented and should encourage me. But unfortunately, that made my father all the more stubborn about no. So then there was a free operative word Suzuki violin program program in my school. And even though I had no interest in the violin, I did it just because it was at least music. And even though I was good at it, I wasn't interested. And then I became the girl drummer in my grammar school band because I always had a sense of the rhythm. And that was really fun. To have a girl drummer back in those days was pretty unusual. And then when I was 11, I'd saved up enough money to buy an acoustic guitar. And I bought my guitar I basically walked down to my parents and said, I've saved up enough money for a guitar. I found a place that had a flood sale, so the prices I can afford drive me. So then I started teaching myself guitar. And when I was 13, I'd finally saved up enough money to buy a piano, and I'd located a piano, just like in the old Roadrunner cartoons with Wile E. Coyote, where they got everything from Acme Company. I went and I found an Acme piano. I figured if it's good enough for Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, it's good enough for me.
Absolutely.
I bought a Rick and Sons upright piano. Basically, I told my parents, here's the piano, here's the address, here's the money. I'm 13, I can't drive. Please take me to the store. So they did, but unfortunately the piano was put on the 2-season frozen porch. So most of the time when I'd play, it was freezing, and I wasn't allowed to play when my father was home. But when he wasn't home, that's where I was. So the long and short of it is my music grew, and I didn't get a piano till I was 13. And once I got the piano, I never looked back.
So, and we really don't have to get too deep into this, but it does sort of touch on the pursuits and some of the trials and tribulations of being an independent artist. Why do you think your father was so opposed to, you being a musician?
Because he was scared. He was afraid that I wouldn't be able to make a living. And that had nothing to do with being a musician or not to me. Like I knew, like when I was in college and I went to college, I was a music major, and I co-founded a singing group that's still around, and I ran a cafe, and I both played, and I also, brought other musicians into this cafe. And it was already clear there was no money in music. And when I graduated from college and went to grad school in the Boston area and founded an artist alliance group and produced multimedia concerts, and even got to play at the top club, at 21, and had my first album come out around then to critical acclaim, it was very clear there was no money in music. But there was more money in music then than there is now. So,
very true.
I've always had to have two careers, one where I can pay my rent so that I can survive. And there was a period of time I couldn't do music because I raised my now 27-year-old as a single mom from when he was 2 3/4 forward. So there was a period of a couple decades where I just couldn't do it because to be a single mom, pay the bills, then I had a mom with Alzheimer's, and be a professional musician, you can't do it all. That's so true. I talk about 2 chapters of musicianship, my first chapter when I was younger, and then when my son was 12, I started creeping back in. And when my mom died about 10 years ago, I gave it 1,000% since.
Let me just say sorry for your loss, even though it's been 10 years ago. I know how that is. I really do. So who were or who are some of your musical influences? Who are some of the people that you listen to? Because I think musicians are a little different than the average music listener. We can listen for fun sometimes, but most of the time when we listen, we're actually listening for stuff that we could actually do. So you know what I mean? So it's almost like we're kind of learning. So in that case, and in that sense, who are some of the artists that you listen to and learn from?
Well, we can go back to when I was a little kid, and we can move to now, because I've always had a very eclectic taste. Just like I write in a lot of different genres, I've listened in lots of genres, and I just plain love good music. And I love music where you can feel the person is really in it. As a little kid growing up, Dionne Warwick, I love Dionne Warwick, and therefore I learned every single song by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. I've recorded a few of them. So Dionne Warwick really had a gift of delivering a song with heart and soul. So she was a huge influence on me when I was a little girl. And when I started to write music, there were certainly little elements of Bacharach and David in the music. Whitney Houston was another person who put her heart and soul in. She died tragically. Her life was really hard, but she really knew how to deliver a song. When I was very little, it was when the singer-songwriter movement started. So Carole King, James Taylor, Gordon Lightfoot. Because I have blonde curly hair, everyone used to say, oh, and I play the piano, that I should do Carole King shows. I actually eventually did do a Carole King show, and I've recorded some of her music. But one of the funniest things was when a colleague of mine photoshopped a picture of my face into Carole King's hair in a gig with James Taylor, and everyone thought that I had a gig with James Taylor. But anyhow, how could I not appreciate Carole King, both because, you know, I was a little kid and she wrote some really beautiful songs, but also as a curly-haired blonde piano player, that was a natural. I loved Harry Belafonte. You know, I loved calypso music. I loved Santana. I loved Earl Klugh. I loved Earl Klugh. He was just so fantastic. And even, you know, Pete Seeger and the classic folk. You know, there were Broadway musicals like Pippin. I love Ben Vereen, you know. So I would listen to all kinds of music, anything I could get my hands on. Of course, you know, when I was a little kid, that's when the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were out. So, you know, it's so I could go on and on and on. But as an adult, besides listening to friends of mine in the singer-songwriter world, so there are many, many people in that world, I loved Scullers Jazz Club in Boston. When my son was pretty little, I'd start bringing him to shows there. So instead of going to sleep with your basic music of the day, he'd listen to like Spyro Gyra or the Rippingtons when he'd go to sleep. You know, so anyhow, I love saxophone. You know, I love having saxophone on my recordings. So Scullers Jazz Club had so many amazing groups with amazing saxophonists. And I, therefore, you know, that one could call something that I love and have as an interest. I have written some jazzy songs that I've sprinkled in to some of my albums, and some that are a little Latin jazzy. But Scullers Jazz Club showcased so many people from the smooth jazz artists, which I absolutely loved. They even had Christopher Cross come through. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Bobby Caldwell. He wrote a lot of songs. He was quite an interesting person, but he had some beautiful songs and would come through. Some amazing female jazz performers would come through. And I love to see, you know, female jazz performers that just really own the stage. I love Diana Krall. You mentioned her. I think she's fantastic. And I could name lots of my own colleagues whose music I love and listen to. In fact, if I go on a trip in my car, I have a car that's old enough that I can still play CDs because I love CDs. And my soundtrack is the music of my friends.
Love it. Yeah, you know, you mentioned Bobby Caldwell, and you know, for a lot of Black folks, there are a lot of Black folks that still don't know Bobby Caldwell is white. You know, because What You Won't Do for Love is like a staple. You know, on smooth jazz R&B radio, and so Bobby Caldwell, yeah, absolutely. And my kids, I have a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 30-year-old. Don't ask me how. Right. But my 11-year-old, who is now sort of emerging as this musician, I used to put the Art of Noise when he was still in the womb. I would put my headphones on my wife's belly and play Art of Noise for him when he started kicking. And so
fantastic.
I was trying to get him, you know, turn him into a musician before he was born. I did that. All right. So without further ado, we're going to play one of your songs from your latest project. I don't know what the title is. I don't know.
A Recipe for Hope.
Yeah, well, Recipe for Hope is the name of the album. Unshameless plug. Can't keep doing that too. So I don't know the name of the song that we're going to play right now because I'm going to let our intern pick it. And then we'll talk about the title and your process and your writing process afterwards. So, ladies and gentlemen, Linda Marks on the Indie Music Podcast, The Liftoff. Let's go.
Gracefully you passed, and that is how you lived. In the distance, your glimmer lives on. sparkling in the room, by your picture on the wall. I hear your voice, it's a blessing in song. What happens when a loved one turns to dust? Sooner or later, that moment comes for all of us. A person we love will soar up above and watch over us on the wings of a dove. What becomes of all the ties left behind? Are they more than just memories in our mind? Our tears fall like rain. Grief robs the hearts in pain. We can never ever touch our loved one again. Will I hear you in the rustling of the wind? Will I see you in the movement of the tides? Will each rainbow hold a message you are sending my way? Will you write me love letters in the sky? What happens when your body's in the ground? Will your music be silent, a heavenly sound? Will the spirit of our loved ones grow like seeds, bring beauty to our garden, or just weeds? You'll watch over us. Will I hear you in the rustling of the wind? Will I see you in the movement of the tides? Will each rainbow hold a message you are sending my way? Will you write me love letters in the sky? You'll watch over us and send love letters in the sky. Send love letters in the
That was a very, very pretty song.
Thank you so much. And thank you for choosing it. Radio often won't play it because it's 5 minutes long, but I love that song and I love the arrangement. And I'm so grateful you played it.
Absolutely. So we're going to get to that. So tell us what the title is.
It's called Love Letters in the Sky.
And who wrote, well, I guess that should be obvious, but who
Yes.
wrote it, who produced it, who engineered it, who's the team behind it?
Yep. I write music and lyrics, and I help in the arrangement. I work with Eric Balke of Hudson Harding Music and Glenn Barrett of Morning Star Studios in Philly. Glenn is a multi-Grammy award-winning sound engineer, and Eric helps promote the album and also helps in the production process. It's a collaboration of all of us. And my violinist is Alice Hasten, who lives in Memphis. She's a phenomenally talented violinist. She plays on a lot of my recordings, and I'm very grateful. She's coming up to Boston in June when I do an album release at a top Boston club for this album. On violin from Maine is, oh my goodness, I'm seeing her printed across my eyes. And then, you know, when you see something, but it doesn't come out the mouth.
Right.
It will come. April Reed Cox is her name. She's my cellist. And there's a wonderful team of studio musicians that Glenn works with that are all teachers at the Berkeley of Philly. So they're on the album as well. John Conahan, Russ Bellenois. I'll look on the album to give you all the names, to give credit where credit's due. Chico Huff. Let's see. I think I covered everybody who's on it. And I go to Philly to actually do the vocals. What I do when I make an album is I'll do a piano vocal demo up in Boston. I work with Doug Hammer at Dream World Production, and a few of the songs on this album are ones he and I co-produced. But then for most of them, I've been going to Philly to do the vocals once we've got the arrangement in place. And some of them are their studio musicians, some are my musicians that I bring in. But I'm very, very happy with the arrangement on that song.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do here on the Liftoff, we do give a very soft rating of songs. We typically go, from A to C. A being something that we really, really liked. C being something like, it might not be for us, but, you know, it could be for someone else. You know, the rule here is that if you were lower than a C, we wouldn't be interviewing you in the first place. So I give that song a very solid B+, because it really took me someplace. And it's weird. That song, and I'm glad we talked about your influences, because I hear the Carole King, I hear the rhythm. So it's kind of one of those songs that, I don't know if you remember in the 70s, that they had these little, they weren't music videos, but more like little nature exposés that, you know, they would take these things out in nature. Like you would see like, you know, a little stream, and you would see little animals and whatever. That's the kind of journey that it kind of took me on. And it reminded me of this sort of space that lies between pop music, jazz music, folk music, right in that, you know what I mean? Just kind of right there in that lane. So, and I could definitely tell that there was some sonic expertise that is vitally important if you are an independent artist. So kudos for you for that particular song. What motivated you to write it?
Thank you. Actually, I wrote it when a musical colleague of mine, who he and another musical colleague and I co-produce a songwriters series called The Loop. It used to be in person before the pandemic, but we made it virtual, and we are keeping it that way because now we can have songwriters from all over the world. They don't have to just be in the Boston area. But his name is John O'Leary. He was quite an extraordinary person, and he mentored a young singer who is very special. You know, I did a little mentoring, but he was her godfather, and he has helped her blossom into an amazing singer. Today is her 21st birthday. Her name is Abigail Arndt. And the two of them would go play and sing together. But John got COVID and went into the hospital with pneumonia, and they discovered he had lung cancer. So he passed very quickly. A huge loss for many, many, many of us, because he was a very special person as well as musician. And I had the image when he passed of him watching over us, writing love letters in the sky. He's that kind of person. So I wrote it for John. And then also another singer-songwriter, more of a I'd call him more of a song stylist. His name was Eric Snake Gillickson. He was
Mm-hmm.
part of a group called Orpheus, I think in the 60s. And
Mm-hmm.
they had a song, one song that became very, very famous, but then they continued to play. And one thing about Snake is if you were to call out a year, any year, he could, like that, pull a song out and play it for you. It could be 1842 or 1973. It wouldn't matter. And he'd come up with his own rendition. So he was a very beloved member of the music community. And when he died, it was very, very sad. And it was right as I was writing the song. So anyhow, that's how the song became written.
Oh wow. Okay. That's heavy and sad, but also in a way almost joyous, you know,
It is
because
joyous.
yeah, that energy, I don't believe that, you know, death is the end. I believe that energy just gets transformed. And so so listening to that, I can kind of see that, I can kind of hear that. And that was maybe your intention. Yeah.
And actually there was a memorial service for John, I think it was in November. And I had the opportunity to sing it live at his memorial service. It was hard not to cry my way through the song, but it did feel like he was in the room. And his, as you said, the joy, he was a very joyous, creative person. He would write love letters in the sky and send them to us. And we could feel him in the room. So you're absolutely right. I believe that when people pass, they're still with us and they watch over us. And I had that experience at his memorial service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, right at this very moment, are you strictly piano? Do you branch off and, you know, still pick up the violin? Are you, you know, and also, is that Mr. Max?
That's Mr. Max. He always has to get in on the action when there's some sort of show going on.
And so, and don't Linda, don't judge me, but you know, I told you about my son who is the emerging musician. You know, he's playing saxophone in school, and I tell him that only first chairs can rehearse indoors. So, and I mean it. So right at this very moment, what instruments do you play? What instruments are you comfortable playing? And is there something that you would like to learn, you know, to play in the near future?
Well, I never loved violin enough to get good enough to play it. And there are people who that's their passion, like Alice Hayson. Jackie Dembski is another phenomenal violinist who's played on my albums. So when I see people where that's their passion, I'd much rather have them play than me.
Absolutely.
You know,
I feel that way about singers. Yeah.
And I love writing harmony. I have albums where I sing all the harmonies. I write the harmonies and sing them all. So I love doing harmony. That's not quite an instrument, but it's sort of a different dimension besides being a lead singer. I love arranging for instruments. I can't say, for me to play an instrument professionally, I would want it to be a total passion that I focus so much energy on that I could do a phenomenal job. Max just knocked a whole bunch of stuff under my piano. But so if I had a drum set, I would love to go back to that because I love being a drummer. I love guitar, but I still play like a 13-year-old because that's when I put it down, and I've only picked it up here and there. So I love saxophone, but I think, again, it would take a real immersion to get good enough. So even though I love instruments, actually bass is something that would be fun to pick up. I think that one would come pretty naturally because the bass on my piano is like playing a bass.
Absolutely.
So I love that too. I think what I really love though is being surrounded by other people playing the instruments so I can feel all the textures, because I'm only one person and I can sing and play the piano, but I always hear so many other layers. And that's why it's really fun to go in the studio with the sound engineer and to bring people in and put the layers on and arrange it. So I think arranging is one of my deepest passions, along with writing harmonies and just being a singer-songwriter who plays the piano and sings.
Absolutely, because I mean, first of all, it makes a lot of sense that you would want to learn to pick up the drums, because the piano is a percussive instrument, you know. So that makes sense to me. And secondly, harmonies. Your voice is an instrument. It is an instrument that sadly a lot of people who allegedly can sing don't know how to use. And so kudos for you being able to do that as well, and not have to rely on producers like me who do computer generated harmonies because, you know, for whatever reason. So we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to play our Blast Artist Spotlight, which is the Divine Favor Project with a song called It Takes a Village here on the Liftoff. And that was the Divine Favor Project with It Takes a Village. And they are one of the many artists that are on blastmusic247.com. If you are an independent artist who is ready to get their art out there, go to Blast Music 247, fill out a free profile, and let's get your art out to the community. Blastmusic247.com, changing the industry one artist at a time. And we're back with Miss Linda Marks, multi-award winning singer-songwriter. So let's talk about that for a second. What can you name some of the awards? Some of the ones that you care to mention, some of the awards that you've won?
Oh, probably only the most recent ones because I tend to not make that list. I probably should, but it's,
Right,
it's sort of
right.
hard to remember all of them. By the
Hmm.
way, this is Sebastian, who's another Siberian kitty cat from the
Hi,
same breeder as
Sebastian.
Maxie. And he,
Hi,
he decided he
Sebastian.
really liked the song and he came on my lap during the song. So,
All
um,
right.
yeah, very most recently, the Closing International Music Awards gave this album Best Album, which was amazing.
Nice.
It just came out January 1st and it just got an award. And there's a song
Congratulations.
on this album called September Morn that just won me Best Singer-Songwriter. So that
Congratulations.
is a very immediate award. The World Songwriting Awards has selected a couple of my songs as best songs. One called Ghosts, that's going to be on my 2025 album, received Best Alternative Song.
Hmm.
And a song that was on my 2023 Everyday Legends album called I Can Only Imagine
Hmm.
was received a Best World Music Award. This
Hmm.
past August, I got an award at the International Singer-Songwriters Association, the annual award ceremony. To go back beyond that, it's like I can remember like what just happened, but it's sort of
Right.
harder to go back. I actually got honorable mentions for like 6 or 8 songs in the UK Songwriting Award.
Nice.
So those are just some of the recent ones.
Well, we're going to send a special shout out to Miss Dove, who is president of the ESA Awards in Atlanta. I myself have been nominated in 3 categories: Blast Radio 247, which is partnered with Soul Resurrection Music. We've been nominated. Our own Troy Saha has been nominated, and so we intend to party really, really well in Atlanta in August, and hopefully we'll get to a chance to meet in person.
Absolutely. In fact, I met Troy last year in Atlanta, and I think I was talking with him when I realized I needed to run and check because I think that the category I was nominated in was coming up, and I just ran to my seat and suddenly my name is called and I couldn't believe it. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. You should have rubbed his head for good luck,
yeah, I
before you
guess
did that.
Troy's a good luck omen. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. So can you talk a little bit about validation? And because there are a lot of award ceremonies that pop up. Some of them, like the ESA Awards, are very good. And
Mhm.
some of them you can kind of tell from a distance that those are just money grabs, right?
Yeah.
What in your mind when you are, looking at these awards that you're getting, how does that validate you? Or does it validate you as a singer-songwriter?
Well, I mean, what it does is it helps validate me to other people, which is sort of sad. Most people aren't going to just pick up your new album and listen.
Mhm.
But if suddenly I'm getting all these awards, then people want to pick up the album and listen. So it's more of an external validation than for me. For me, I'm just an artist and I write from my heart. I write songs at the heart of our times. I've never fit neatly in a genre box. The way you describe Love Letters in the Sky is like, yeah, that's me. I cross over and hit the boundaries of a lot of different genres, and any album probably, different songs fit in different genre boxes. So I guess for me, validation comes mostly when I've done a show, whether it's a virtual live stream show for my almost 4-year-old live stream or in person, and someone comes up to me and says the song touched them. That's real validation, because I write music to touch people, to bring people together, to bring peace and healing in the world, to bridge divides. Like, actually, what really is validation, because some of my songs I write, I call anthemic songs that have a chorus to have everybody sing together. When a room of people is singing the song, that is validation. Because then I know it's reaching them.
I agree 100%.
And awards are so subjective. Like, I'm grateful when someone likes what I do enough that they do give me an award. But, unless an award actually looks deeply at who I am and how hard I work and the people I work with, which is very few awards, they usually just listen. Some of them, they even have your name off. They want the lyric sheet without your name. And I've seen contests where everything is a certain style. And I happen to be a very young baby boomer, but I'm a very young baby boomer at the end of the baby boom. So basically I'm in the over 50 generation, and I'll hear contests where there's not a song from someone over 30.
Wow. Yeah.
And that happens. And one of the things I've been trying to advocate for is, I call it the wisdom of lived years. Through I run the ISA Boston Northeast chapter, and we did a show at one of the local community art centers, the Arlington Center for the Arts. And the show was called Stories to Tell, the Wisdom of Lived Years. And we showcased 6 singer-songwriters all over 50. Because for many of us, like, the longer we live and the more we hone our craft, the better our music. And it was an amazing show. In fact, the Performing Arts Center thought it would be good to have us come back again. So I think it's really important to give visibility and audibility and stories. Like, I would love to get a major story in a major publication like the New York Times looking at the wisdom of lived years and the value added by singer-songwriters over 50.
I love that. We can continue with this conversation, but I really want to get some more music. We're going to play something. I don't know. All right, intern, take it away. This is Linda Marks once again on the Liftoff. Let's go.
Ba-da-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-ba.
So I can't decide if that is more of one of those type of songs that you play when you're cleaning up on Saturday mornings, or on Sunday afternoon when you're sipping on some coffee and you might be reading something. I can't decide which one, but I give it an A either way. Can you tell us
Thank you.
what the name of that is
Yes.
and what the motivation behind it, and
It's
also the personnel?
Yeah, it's called Jazzin'. I was just looking around to see if I have that album here on my. Oh, I do. Yay! It's on my 2022 home album, which actually this album, all of my albums do very well. My 2023 album is still on the Roots Music Report's folk charts over a year after it was released. This one charted very high when it came out. And if I can figure out how to open the packaging, I can tell you more of the personnel. The saxophonist on this one is Dave Birkin. I work with two different saxophonists, Willie Sordillo, who's an alto saxophonist, and Dave Birkin, who's a tenor saxophonist. This was right in the pocket of Dave Birkin, so he's my saxophonist. And a phenomenal bass player who lives in New Jersey, Craig Aiken, who plays a lot in the jazz world, is my bass player on it. Trying to see if there are other people I should be naming on this particular track from the album. Somehow, I think Joe Saborin is playing guitar on it as well. But I recorded this one with Doug Hammer, my local musician. He's a multi-award winning sound engineer and piano composer. He's in Lynn, Massachusetts, and he and I have been working together for probably about 15 years. He and I did quite a few albums of my catalog together. And the inspiration, sometimes music just comes through me. I told you how much I loved Sculler's Jazz Club, how much I love smooth jazz. I mean, I write all kinds of genres, and jazz is one of the things that just comes through me, but it's often not just a straight jazz. It's sort of like a flavorful, heartful jazz. So jazzin' was something that just started popping through, and it was like really fun. And the piano part's really fun. And of course, I heard saxophone. So I will call this just a divinely inspired song that popped through me. And it always makes my heart warm up and makes me smile and want to dance when I hear it. So like whether it's Saturday cleaning music or Sunday sipping coffee and reading music, or just driving in the car and wanting to sort of bop and or uplift my spirit because I want a feel good song. It's all of those things.
I would actually agree, because the word that came to mind is whimsical. You know, it's really, really hard to be sad listening to that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's almost like it's anti-sadness.
Absolutely.
You know, we're up against the clock here. And so what this really tells me is that at some point later on this year, we're going to have to invite you back to, talk about whatever the new projects you have and shows. But I do want to leave you with one question to answer that I think is very, very appropriate with what you just mentioned previously. Does success have an age limit?
No.
Especially in independent music?
No. And even the definition of what success is such a personal thing. In my other line of work, I'm a heart-centered body psychotherapist, mind-body psychotherapy, and I've always loved helping people heal their traumatized hearts and help people fly, find a sense of purpose and vision. I just wrote a song called Lighthouse, which talks about all of us have a unique light, a unique voice, a unique gift to give to the world. And the more we feel supported to really claim the authenticity of who we are and just bring it into the world, people need to see your light. There are people waiting to see your light.
Absolutely.
So it has nothing to do with age, background, just the deeper we go into our purpose, and shining the light that we have to shine, there are people that need to hear it, feel it, receive it. So no is my answer. And just like the wisdom of lived years, I think the longer we live, particularly for those of us who are basically artists at heart, we just have to be who we are. And success to me is the full commitment to do whatever I can with my art to reach people, to touch people. it would really be great if I could make enough money as an artist to even pay for making a really high quality album with a multi-Grammy winning sound engineer. You know, I can't touch it because on the streaming platforms you get 0.0001 cent and a million stream buys you coffee. But you know, it would be really nice to not have to work really hard in order to be able to do this. But to me, success is just following your heart. And I hope even beyond when I'm alive, that I will be up there writing love letters in the clouds and the sky, sending them down through song.
Oh, I love that. Can you tell everyone real quickly where they can find you online, your social media platforms, and where they can find your music?
Sure. My favorite one is my YouTube channel, which is LSM Heart, LSMHEART, because I put so much cool stuff there from, hey, I just wrote a song, I'm at my home piano, to shows, to studio videos, to lyric videos. So LSM Heart is my very favorite one. On Facebook, I'm Linda Marks Music and Linda Marks. On Twitter or X, I'm LSM Heart. On Instagram, I'm LSM Heart. I'm on LinkedIn. Some people actually are using that for music these days. My website is Linda Marks Music. Those are some of the ways you can find me.
Okay, real quick. I know we're up against the clock, but I have to ask you. The Grammys are next week.
Yes.
And you happen to be a voting member of the Grammy of the Recording Academy. Are there any categories that you pay close attention to during the Grammys? Because I usually live stream it. I have people that I comment with, and I'm always curious about the producer of the year, you know, because that's kind of one of the things I aspire to be. You know, as far as the Grammys are concerned, is there something that you're going to be paying close attention to this year?
Well, the categories that I vote in are the ones that I know best and perform in. So like American Roots and Jazz are two of the categories that I feel that I'm competent to be doing the judging in, because those are some of my categories. And I also, there's a category that has a lot of stuff, including global music in it and new age and stuff like that. So, you know, I've paid attention to all that, but in all truth, where I pay the most attention, because when I have the privilege, and it really is a privilege to listen to so much amazing music and therefore meet people who are doing amazing music in the first and second round. And my own music has been in the first round for a couple of years. I hope at some point I can build the coalition to get the full nomination in the second round. But what I really do is I cheer on my friends. I have friends that are nominated, and I want them to win. I love cheering on the independent artist.
Absolutely.
So whenever I see an independent artist in any category, because one thing that's been lovely is people in every genre have reached out to me from all over the world. And I really appreciate the music that people put their hearts and souls into. So I'll be there cheering on the independent artists who I know who made a nomination this year.
Well, you're going to be another person that I'm inboxing on Messenger. It's like, can you believe that actually won? But anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Linda Marks, it was a pleasure talking with you. Definitely have to invite you back to talk about music and technology and things of that nature. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This has been the Liftoff, the Indie Music Podcast. I'm your host, DRay, the producer, here on blastmusic247.com. You guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.